Kaylee narrowed her eyes as she looked up at the blazing spring sun, basking in its warm and gentle rays. Even as she shut her eyes, the brightness still seemed to linger, like someone was still waving a torch before her face. The air was thick, with the scent of fresh earth, melting snow, and sun-baked pavement. In a nearby tree, restless sparrows chirped nervously before taking flight and swarming a sun-soaked puddle. Life was blooming all around her after a long and harsh winter, and it filled her heart with joy. Suddenly, the first butterfly of the year fluttered past, even though there were no flowers in sight. It landed nearby on a clump of last year's grass, looking puzzled. "You're in a hurry," Kaylee said with a grin. "We're all rushing to live this year. I get it." Kaylee tenderly placed her hand on her rounded belly and stroked it. "But don't rush, little one. It's still too early for you to come into this world. We'll experience next spring together. Just you, me, and our old man." Kaylee was 5 months pregnant and couldn't fathom becoming a mother so soon. After moving from a small village to the city, she aspired to work at a trendy outerwear atelier, but that dream was still out of reach. Instead, she took on odd jobs in a small sewing workshop situated near the fabric market. Mostly, they performed minor repairs, sewed zippers, and hemmed pants. There was no room for creativity in this work, but it brought in some cash, especially since the pleasant and accommodating girl worked fastidiously and quickly developed her own clientele. She visited her mother's house on the outskirts of the village several times a month, whenever she started to feel homesick. The image of her childhood yard, complete with squawking geese and an old dog gnawing on bones in the sun, always brought her comfort and made her needs tremble with warmth. Kaylee's mother, Latvian-born Alexandria, had come to the small town of Riverdale 2 decades ago with a local boy named Braxton, who was serving in the army. Her arrival had caused quite a stir among the locals, who were disappointed by the arrival of such a beautiful and exotic newcomer. Braxton had been a coveted bachelor, with his handsome looks, height, and inheritance of a solid house from his late parents. Every girl in the village eagerly awaited his return from the army, secretly comparing themselves to each other in hopes of catching his eye. But Alexandria's arrival had shattered those dreams in an instant. Her unheard-of dowry of furniture made of red wood, a wardrobe, a round extendable table, chairs with curved legs covered in silk upholstery, and a wide bed had only fueled the jealousy and hatred of the local girls and women. They whispered amongst themselves that she must have married a millionaire to bring such luxuries to the village. What they didn't realize was that Alexandria had grown up in a wealthy fishing village, and that her new life in Riverdale had been a culture shock at first. She gradually began to mold her handyman husband, Braxton, to her own tastes, and the women in the village couldn't help but be drawn to their home like it was a tourist attraction. This only fueled the anger of the jealous women in the town. Have you all ever seen such things in a peasant hut? People have been living like this for centuries, and now Alexandria thinks everything's gotta be different. Poor Braxton. That snake doesn't spare him. She must have stirred up trouble back in her Baltic homeland, and now she's come here. Mark my words, ladies. She's gonna start bewitching our men. She doesn't know how to do anything else. She's a witch, the villagers gossiped. We thought maybe she got knocked up by Braxton, so he married her. But nah, look at her. She ain't got nothing going on. But Alexandria worked on the collective farm just as good as any other woman. And she turned out to be a skilled craftswoman, just like her man. Back in her homeland, she was a well-known fashion designer, making not only dresses but also jackets and even coats. Plus, the young wife of the tractor driver had skills in embroidery. So little by little, everyone got used to her, and soon enough, women from the city came to her to have their fancy clothes made for proms, anniversaries, or weddings, not just in their village. It wasn't even 20 years before Alexandria Johnson became known by her full name. Nobody called her by any other name but her husband, who was now Braxton Gray at 40. Braxton and Alexandria were happy together, living in abundance and love. The only thing that made them sad was that they couldn't have kids. Braxton was thinking about adopting a child from a children's home, but Alexandria kept saying, "We'll have our own little one." She was getting up there in age, and she was her parents' only child. It was hard for them to give up their own flesh and blood, especially in their old age. But they had no choice. Love. Alexandria didn't visit her homeland often. It was too far away. But a couple of times she went on vacation with Braxton to her beloved lake, her crying amber pines, and her elderly parents. She begged them to move in with her, but they refused to leave their native shores, and Braxton didn't want to move to the Baltic region. Alexandria's heart was breaking into pieces. The elderly parents started getting sick more often, and then one by one, they passed away. After burying her parents, Alexandria only went back to her native fishing village once to inherit and sell her parents' house. With the money earned, she bought Braxton a new car, another truck, and their village another reason for her now subdued envy. Braxton was happy. The car replaced the child they never had in their 20 years of marriage. He treated it with care, wiping the dust off and maintaining it, never driving it recklessly. He even started building a garage next to the house, not just a shelter for the car from the rain, but a proper one with a pit, a workshop, and shelves for tools, a workbench. The construction project ended up taking longer than expected. The couple had a scorching hot harvest season, but the purchase of their new property didn't bring Braxton any joy. One day, he headed to the city with the remaining money from the sale of their Latvian house and the money earned during the harvest, but he never returned. Alexandria cursed herself with her final words for not going with him. She had an urgent dress order for a bride, but she knew deep down that there was nothing she could have done, except maybe die alongside Braxton. Several days after the search, Braxton's lifeless body was found. He had no money, no car, and no expensive items on him. His murderers were never caught, and the car was never found. It's unclear whether locals who may have known Braxton was carrying a large sum of cash brought the criminals to him, or if the criminals coveted his new car and his money was an added bonus. Alexandria was inconsolable. As time passed, Alexandria's depressed state was compounded by unexplained dizziness and nausea. The local paramedic in the entire town of Riverdale were surprised to discover that her pregnancy was the cause of her condition. Unfortunately, Braxton didn't live long enough to hold his newborn daughter, the child he and Alexandria had eagerly dreamed about. They had prayed and believed that, just like Alexandria's parents, who had been blessed with a child in their 50s, the Lord would show them mercy. Alexandria gave birth to their daughter Kaylee with remarkable ease for an older woman. However, her choice of name once again puzzled the villagers, who expected something unusual and exotic. Nevertheless, Kaylee was a name that the couple had picked out long ago. Now, little Kaylee toddled around on their land, completely unaware of the tragedy that preceded her birth. As Kaylee grew older, she helped her mother with her sewing business. However, her eyesight began to rapidly deteriorate. "I cried my eyes out, Kaylee," her mother would say. "Your eyes are still so young. Come on, thread this needle for me and sweep those shelves." Eventually, Kaylee learned not just the art of sewing, but also the secrets of tailoring. Unfortunately, the village was gradually dying out, and fewer young people remained. Alexandria received fewer orders, and eventually, a tough decision had to be made. Kaylee needed to go to the city, find work, and make her own destiny. "I don't need much, my daughter. I have a roof over my head. I have some occasional work, And even though my pension is small, I'll manage. And you, my talented daughter, will find a good job." Kaylee found it difficult to leave her elderly mother in her hometown. The city didn't evoke any positive emotions in her, as everything was different there. The bustling streets, crowded public transportation, towering buildings that obscured the sky, the noise of cars and the smells of the metropolis. Here, Kaylee felt like an outsider and couldn't adjust to her new life. Her boyfriend, Rowan, constantly teased her about her small-town upbringing. They had met 6 months ago, and Kaylee had fallen in love instantly. Rowan was a true city dweller who had never left the city, unlike many of his peers who went camping or fishing with their friends and family. Rowan preferred to travel abroad for vacation. "But haven't you ever gone fishing on the river?" Kaylee asked, surprised. "Even 5-year-old boys in our village go fishing with old men. What else is there to do in your village?" Rowan waved it off disdainfully. "If they took away my nightclubs, cinemas, bars, and gyms, maybe I too would be so bored that I look for an old fishing rod and a dirty pond to catch some poor little fish for the cats to eat. No, I'd rather go to a decent restaurant and order the best fish that the fishermen caught somewhere in the ocean, or buy it at a supermarket and not waste a ton of time sitting by some stinky river." "But Rowan," Kaylee protested, defending everything that was important to her. "It's so romantic to be alone with nature at dawn. Our river is clean and good fish swim in it. When my grandfather was still alive, we used to go fishing together quite often." Kaylee and Rowan met by chance. The young man stopped by their workshop and asked to have a frayed seam on his pants repaired. "I would have just thrown them away. I can't stand wearing clothes with repaired seams. But I have to somehow get home," he explained. "What are you talking about, young man?" grumbled the old seamstress. "Your pants can serve you for at least another year. Why would someone throw away a good piece of clothing?" Rowan felt embarrassed sitting there, hiding behind a newspaper while the seamstress fixed his pants, especially since a pretty young girl was working on her own order nearby, glancing at him from time to time. That girl was Kaylee. When the young man finally received his important piece of clothing back, he already knew the name of the beautiful girl with the dimples on her cheeks. "So, Kaylee, see you tonight." He winked at her goodbye and hurried off to his business. The young adult made plans to meet up after work and grab some dinner. Kaylee felt flattered by the attention of the young man. Since moving to the city, she had been working tirelessly, leaving her with no time to focus on her personal life. Unexpectedly, she met a charming gentleman who wasn't your average student. He was independent and appeared to be well off. Spending time with Rowan was a blast. He taught her how to play billiards and bowling, introduced her to his friends, and even took her to the beach. While the autumn weather in the city was dreary and rainy, Kaylee experienced her first sunset on the shore. Feeling the warmth of the sun on her skin, it was at the beach where they let their guard down and got caught up in the moment, resulting in Kaylee becoming pregnant. Although Kaylee didn't expect Rowan to propose to her right away, she secretly hoped he would. "Don't worry," he assured her. "I'll introduce you to my mother. It's crucial for us to get her approval. She's a strict woman who doesn't condone carelessness, but I'm sure she'll understand the situation once I speak to her. We don't know each other well enough to get married just like that. Let's not mention the baby for now. We'll focus on getting to know each other better and making a good impression on her. If everything goes well, we'll tell her later." They planned to visit Rowan's parents over the weekend, but Kaylee felt nauseous in the morning due to morning sickness, leading them to postpone the trip. The visit was rescheduled several times, and eventually, Rowan stopped inviting Kaylee over, causing her to worry. "Is he still calling you?" Vanessa, Kaylee's best friend, asked with concern. The two girls worked together and shared a small room with an older woman. "We don't see each other as much anymore," Kaylee replied. "Don't let it slide. Call him now and ask to visit. Your pregnancy will start showing soon, and how will you pretend to be innocent in front of his mother?" Vanessa expressed her worry, heeding her friend's insistent advice. Finally, Kaylee had a chance to meet the woman she feared just as much as she feared childbirth. She couldn't hide her anxiety and nervousness, causing Rowan to be taken aback. "What's wrong with you?" he whispered. "My mother will think you're having some kind of fit. Calm down." Miss Cook didn't approve of Kaylee, the only companion her son had. "Don't invite her again," she declared abruptly as soon as Kaylee left. "She's not right for you. She's a simple girl from a poor family, isn't she? And she can't even put two words together. She has no education, no use for her. All she can do is sew on buttons. What do you even talk to her about?" "It's a laughing matter, Rowan. I don't understand why you even brought her over to visit us." Unexpectedly, it was as if a lightning bolt struck Mrs. Cook, and she guessed the reasons for such a visit. "Are you planning to marry her? Have you gone mad? It's not going to happen. Find yourself a girl from a good family. Don't embarrass me, please. You're a handsome man with a decent job and a good education. She's a country bumpkin, that's it. I consider this topic closed. No more Kaylee, and don't argue with me." "Mom," Rowan decided to confess. "Kaylee is pregnant." Well, a baby." Mrs. Cook was stunned. "Are you sure it's your baby?" "I don't know whether it's out of luck or not, but I'm sure it's mine. To be honest, I'm not too thrilled about the situation. Kaylee and I had a good time at the beach, and I didn't expect this to happen. I thought I would just have a little fun, that's all. But things turned out differently." "It's kind of stupid, don't you think? You're a grown man," his mother protested. "Don't you know how to use protection? Don't you know that children can come from casual relationships, Rowan? You're 25 years old." "Yes, I know all of that," the young man sighed. "But there are expectations to the rule, and it just happened. What's the point of talking about it now? Did you offer her to terminate the pregnancy? Maybe she doesn't really want this child." "Kaylee wants the baby, and I'm not going to force her to do something she doesn't want to," Rowan firmly stated. "We'll get married, and we'll see what happens after the baby is born." His mother scolded and admonished him for a long time, but Rowan had made his decision and proposed to Kaylee. And now, standing in the spring sunshine and stroking her rounding belly, Kaylee looked out for Rowan. He had promised to pick her up and take her to the monthly checkup at the clinic. Rowan was already 20 minutes late, and Kaylee began to get nervous. After half an hour, she decided to go to the clinic by herself. "You're having a girl," exclaimed the doctor who performed the ultrasound. "The baby is developing well, so you can make Dad happy." "Where did your dad disappear, little one?" flashed through Kaylee's mind. "I hope everything is okay with him." When she went outside, she found a payphone and called Rowan at work. "Mr. Norris left about 2 hours ago," the secretary replied pleasantly. "He had some sort of appointment. If he returns soon, tell him that his fiancée Kaylee called and is very worried. Ask him to come see me as soon as possible." But Rowan never showed up, and the next day, Kaylee decided to go to his house in the morning. "Rowan is sleeping," Mrs. Cook greeted her icily. "He came home late yesterday and is still resting." "I'm sorry, I was just really worried. He didn't come to see me like he promised. I was afraid something had happened to him," the girl tried to explain. "Maybe I'll come in and wait for him to wake up. I won't be a bother if I sit in a corner somewhere." Rowan's mother pursed her lips disapprovingly, but she allowed the girl to enter. Kaylee felt very uncomfortable being a stranger, an unwelcome guest in her fiancé's house. "I won't live here under any circumstances when we get married," she thought, secretly examining the opulent living room. "We'd better rent a simple apartment somewhere. Ugh, her gaze gives me chills. I'll go wake him up." Mrs. Cook couldn't take it anymore. "He's really sleeping today and hasn't gone to work." 10 minutes later, a groggy and irritable Rowan stepped out of his room. "What are you doing here?" he unexpectedly snapped at Kaylee. "I didn't invite you." "But Rowan," Kaylee pleaded, almost in tears, "I was worried about you. You didn't come yesterday, even though you promised to take me to the doctor. I thought something had happened, and I was very worried." Rowan tried to comprehend her words, but it was clear he was suffering from a hangover and headache from the night before, making it difficult for him to think clearly. "Wait, I promised you what? To go to the doctor?" He had completely forgotten their plans. "Anyway, you can see I'm alive and almost healthy now, so you can go." I'm going to get some more sleep since it was a wild night." Without asking about their child or the results of her doctor's visit, and without apologizing for his rudeness or absence the day before, Rowan retreated back to his bedroom. Kaylee was left standing in the living room, feeling lost. "Well, did you find out what you wanted?" Mrs. Cook asked, not bothering to hide her spiteful smirk. "Goodbye." Kaylee was practically kicked out of the house, and on her way home, she couldn't comprehend what was happening. Vanessa, her friend, was surprised and worried for her. "So, Rowan was rude to you up front in front of his mother. I don't understand. You're supposed to get married in a month, and he proposed to you. Why did he suddenly change?" "I don't get it either," exclaimed Kaylee, feeling disoriented and lost. "His mother never liked me from the beginning. But why did Rowan act that way?" Little did Kaylee know, something significant had occurred in Rowan's life that altered his plans entirely. She discovered the truth soon after, when Rowan approached her and revealed that he had changed his mind and would not be marrying her. "I've met someone else, and I've fallen in love with her," he confessed. "Her name is Harlow, and she's a woman of my type. We've known each other since school, and she's my first love. We haven't seen each other in the past 5 years, but when we reconnected, I realized that I only love her." "What about our daughter?" Kaylee exclaimed. "You promised to marry me and raise our child together." "Don't kid yourself. You knew there wasn't much between us, just a brief fling and an unplanned pregnancy. I won't abandon our daughter. When she's born, I'll take her and raise her in my own family. You'll be free to do whatever you want." "I don't want that kind of freedom," Kaylee shouted. "And I won't let my baby live under Harlow or whatever. Not a chance. How could you be such a liar and treat me so cruelly?" Rowan was not completely honest with Kaylee. He concealed a shameful reality behind his smooth words. When he reunited with an old acquaintance and discovered that her family had become extraordinarily wealthy over the past few years, he chose not to miss the opportunity to marry a millionaire's daughter. He immediately professed his undying love to her, as if he were the protagonist of a cheesy romance novel. "Don't cry, Kaylee," Vanessa consoled her friend. "That liar will get what's coming to him. Just wait and see." But Kaylee was inconsolable. The impending nuptials of her ex-fiancé and the father of her child consumed her, particularly when she found out how affluent his fiancé was. "Vanessa, he's marrying her for the money. He lied to me. There's no love there. I think Rowan just doesn't know how to love," Kaylee confided in her friend. "And this stupid Harlow believes him just like I did." Kaylee had a ludicrous idea to attend Rowan's wedding and humiliate him in front of all the guests. Vanessa tried to talk her out of it, but ultimately realized she couldn't dissuade her friend. "All right, let me go with you at the very least. I can be there to support you and ensure you don't do anything foolish." On the day of the wedding, a large and festive hall was packed with guests who paid no attention to the two girls who quietly entered. One of them was heavily pregnant and stood on the sidelines observing the festivities. When the guests sat down at the tables again and someone decided to give another toast to the bride, the pregnant girl walked to the center of the hall and quickly made her way to the microphone. Fear appeared on the faces of the groom and his mother, but it was too late for them to do anything about it. "Let me speak," Kaylee shouted loudly to the whole room. "You all wish them happiness, but I'll just let them 3 words. Damn you all. There's no happiness for a traitor who abandoned his own child for the money of that rich fool. Yes, that's Rowan's child. And until that millionaire woman appeared, he was planning to marry me. Choke on those ill-gotten gains, Rowan." Kaylee's strength gave out, and she stumbled, nearly falling to the ground. But Vanessa rushed to her side, took her by the arm, and led her out of the room. The guest murmured with outrage. The bride sat pale as Snow White, and Rowan, blushing with shame, ran around her trying to calm her down. The wedding was ruined beyond repair. Mrs. Cook became sick, and an ambulance was called for her. Guests began to disperse, with no one in the mood for celebration. It was evident to everyone that after the pregnant woman's curses, the newlyweds were not going to have any happiness. "What a disgrace," the guests whispered as they left the party. such a well-known and respected family, and they managed to get involved with a thug. Harlow deserves a better match. I even thought she would marry a senator or a judge's son. Where did this Rowan come from anyway? Complained one of the bride's relatives. Maybe this girl with the baby bump is mentally ill, or just plain crazy. Who knows what happened to her? She must have invented a romance with a decent guy in her inflamed brain. Someone else tried to defend Rowan. People continued to gossip about the wedding mishap, while in the meantime, a war was being raged in the newly formed family of Rowan and Harlow. "Who is this girl?" cried the bride through her tears. "She's just a random acquaintance. We only knew each other briefly. It's possible that she really is pregnant with my child, I won't lie to you, but I never promised to marry her. Leaving the child was her choice. How could you not warn me about this? If I had known that such a psycho might show up at my wedding, which my parents spent a fortune on to prepare and host, and to which they invited very influential and respected people, we would have hired security and simply not let her into the hall." Rowan was taken aback by his young wife's materialistic tendencies. He expressed remorse and begged for her forgiveness, but he couldn't help feeling triumphant. Harlow didn't seem to care much about the fact that Rowan had fathered a child with another woman, and that suited him just fine. She was a lot like him and didn't have sentimental feelings about the pregnant girl he had left behind. "You need to apologize to my parents ASAP, Harlow demanded, "and make sure that this woman never comes near our family again." "Absolutely, my love, I'll do whatever you say." Rowan groveled at Harlow's parents' feet, begging for forgiveness and professing his love for their daughter. However, he was too afraid to face Kaylee. Mrs. Cook took on the task of talking to her, but she couldn't find her at Vanessa's apartment or her workplace. Their elderly assistant informed them that Kaylee's mother had fallen ill recently, and Kaylee had taken a few days off to visit her. Her health had been deteriorating, and she had been suffering from heart problems. She had always dreamed of her daughter's happiness, but now the joy of her impending granddaughter's arrival was overshadowed by the fact that her daughter had been deceitfully and dishonorably deceived and abandoned. Alexandria tried to convince Kaylee to come back to the village. Kaylee promised to think about it, but she had decided to give birth in the city. It was safer there. After her daughter was born, they could be together with her mom. Kaylee also planned to continue working at the workshop until the end of her pregnancy. She felt fine and needed the money for her daughter. Rowan was of no help, but their plans were not meant to be. On the day of Kaylee's return, she talked to her mother for a long time. They reminisced about their happy days together and made plans for the future. "I never thought that you would become a mother so early," Alexandria exclaimed in surprise and happiness. "All the women in our family were late bloomers, and all the children were born late. That's why my parents didn't live to see you. But I'm lucky I'll see our little girl soon. Isn't that wonderful? And as for men, well, they'll always be in your life. The important thing is to find someone trustworthy and committed. Look at my Braxton, your father, may he rest in peace." After staying up nearly all night, they eventually dozed off for a short while. Kaylee managed to get a few hours of sleep, but Alexandria never woke up again. When Kaylee woke up the next morning, she couldn't believe that her mom had passed away. Alexandria's face looked peaceful and serene. She had passed away quietly in her sleep, never getting a chance to meet her granddaughter. After the funeral, Kaylee and Vanessa returned to the city together. Kaylee cursed herself for the outburst she had at Rowan's wedding, thinking that it had come back to haunt her like a boomerang, causing her immense pain and leaving her struggling to breathe. Her mom was the only family she had left in the world. "Thank you so much, Vanessa, for always being there," Kaylee said gratefully. "Of course, I'll always be here for you. When we get home, I'll make you some tea, and you can rest. Tomorrow is a new day, and we'll get through it together. You can't worry about the baby or get anxious right now. That's not an option," her friend replied reassuringly. However, neither of them knew that a terrible tragedy had occurred in the city while they were away. Rowan and his young wife Harlow had died in a car accident on the same day that Kaylee was burying her mom. Mrs. Cook, Rowan's mother, had to say goodbye to her only son and daughter-in-law on their final journey. Kaylee and Vanessa had barely crossed the threshold of their rented apartment before Rowan's mother burst in, looking terrified and filled with an ominous fury. Her eyes darted around crazily. Her usually well-kept gray hair was now disheveled. Her skin looked ashen, and her hands were trembling as she desperately reached for Kaylee's throat. "It's you, the cursed witch who killed my son," she screamed, filled with hatred and anger. "Vanessa, what is she talking about? I don't understand anything," Kaylee moaned. "Leave now, right now," Vanessa yelled, bravely shielding Kaylee. "Get out or I'll call the police," she threatened Rowan's mother. "Call them. I don't care anymore. My son is in the grave. This wretch shouldn't live either. But she's carrying his daughter. That's your granddaughter. Are you going to destroy your own granddaughter too?" Vanessa argued with all the strength she had left. She was overcome with a sense of helplessness in the face of the deranged woman's aggression. Vanessa realized that she could no longer resist her, and had to find a way to defuse the situation. To her own surprise, she managed to come up with just the right words to calm Mrs. Cook down. As she spoke, Vanessa fell silent, trembling and weak, her hands limp at her sides. Neither Vanessa nor Kaylee could have predicted the impact of their argument on Mrs. Cook. It ultimately saved Kaylee's life, but would cause her years of hardship. Mrs. Cook was only concerned with her granddaughter, the daughter of her son, and disregarded the mother who cursed the father. She left the room without a word, her intentions unclear and her mind consumed by madness. Kaylee suddenly felt a sharp pain in her back, and her lower abdomen began to cramp. "Vanessa!" she called out weakly, but her friend had gone to get water from the kitchen. Kaylee screamed at the top of her lungs, and the sound echoed through the building, alerting both the residents and the neighbors. Vanessa rushed back into the room, spilling water on the way. "What's wrong?" she asked, seeing Kaylee collapsed on the floor. "Do we need an ambulance?" Kaylee was rushed to the hospital in agonizing pain. As she lay there, she whispered words of encouragement to her unborn baby, promising that everything would be all right. Finally, after hours of struggle, the tiny baby was born prematurely. Kaylee looked down at her daughter with her delicate features and fragile limbs and wept tears of joy and sorrow. "How can I protect you?" she asked her baby girl. "I'll do anything for you, my little one." Kaylee and her daughter stayed in the hospital for longer than most, as the baby required special care. When they finally left in August, Vanessa and other friends from the sewing workshop came to visit. Their boss handed Kaylee a large envelope and said, "We collected a small sum of money for you and your daughter for the first few months. What are you going to do now?" Kaylee replied, "Well, for now, I think I'll live with Vanessa for some time. It'll be easier for me that way. And when my little one grows up, maybe I'll go back to my hometown." Her boss was concerned and asked, "But why do you want to leave? How are you going to manage on your own? There are daycares and jobs here in the city. You can always find a good one. Once your little one is strong enough, you can send her to daycare and come to work for a couple of hours. We'll keep a spot open for you." "Thank you all so much," Kaylee said, feeling grateful. "Such kind people surround me." For a while, Kaylee stayed at home with her daughter, hardly going out. But when her little one turned 6 months old, she enrolled her in daycare and started working half days at the workshop. Even though she was busy, her thoughts were always with her daughter. During this time, Kaylee never saw Rowan's mother again after that unfortunate visit. The woman never appeared, and Kaylee began to forget about her existence. One day, the daycare teacher told Kaylee, "Your mom picked up little Gwen. She said she came unexpectedly and wanted to surprise you." Kaylee was confused and asked, "What mom?" The teacher replied, "Your mom. She even showed us some papers, and your surname was on them." Kaylee was shocked and panicked. "But it can't be. My mom passed away. It couldn't have been her." She couldn't believe that someone pretending to be her mother had taken her little child. What kind of papers could she have had? How could you give Gwen to someone? Kaylee cried out in desperation, "Where's my daughter now?" The commotion started, and the staff at the daycare, including the director, got involved. They called the police, but the officers were not much help. Think carefully. Maybe it was a relative, maybe a friend's joke. First, we need to find out if the girl is out for a walk with her father's relatives. Kaylee was frustrated. What kind of joke can be played with an 8-month-old baby? Don't you understand? I have no relatives or acquaintances capable of such foolishness. Someone kidnapped my daughter, and there's no point in looking in parks. I don't have a husband, never did, but his mother could have taken Gwen. Saying this, Kaylee suddenly vividly imagined Mrs. Cook's eyes burning with hatred. The insane woman could have done something like this. Losing her only son should have generated a thirst for revenge. And this thought made Kaylee even more uncomfortable. We have to get to her place. She could do something to Gwen. She shouted and ran out onto the street, not waiting for the police car. She ran along the road, not caring where her legs were taking her. The only thought pulsating in her mind was, "I gotta make it. I have to make it." She reached the house where she hadn't been since the last time she searched for Rowan. Kaylee stopped, disoriented. The house was clearly empty. The door was wide open. Piles of building materials and garbage were scattered here and there. "If you're looking for the owner, she's long gone," called out the woman who emerged from the neighboring house. Mrs. Cook suffered greatly after her son's death. Then she fell ill, and she left somewhere about a month ago. "Where did she go?" asked Kaylee. "I don't know. She didn't tell me. But it seems like she sold the house, and new tenants are planning to build something new on the lot. But they're not living here yet." "But how can I find her?" Kaylee wondered. "I don't know. She didn't socialize with her neighbors much, even before her son died. And after Rowan passed away, she became a complete recluse. What am I going to do?" Kaylee panicked. "There's no doubt that she stole Gwen. But what if it wasn't her? What if my daughter was kidnapped by strangers? But why? Why would anyone want my babies besides Rowan's mother?" For the following days, Kaylee couldn't think of anything else but her daughter. She tried everything, posting flyers, questioning people, and talking to the police over and over again. But there was no result. Nobody knew where the tiny 8-month-old girl had gone. Difficult times had come for Kaylee. She couldn't work, couldn't eat. Life seemed to have left her fragile body, and another blow followed her daughter's disappearance. "I'm sorry, Kaylee." Vanessa turned to her almost in tears. "I didn't know how to tell you this for a long time, especially since you're going through such terrible things right now. But I have to leave. Remember I told you about the guy I met? Well, he wants to take me to his town. Owen proposed to me, and we'll be getting married soon." Vanessa cried and hugged Kaylee, and the girl couldn't understand why her friend was crying so bitterly. "I feel sorry for you," Vanessa confessed through her tears. "I would never leave you alone, but I love Owen so much and I want to be with him." "Sure, go ahead," Kaylee foolishly replied, a little annoyed by her friend's tears. "Why would you cry? You should be happy. When there's a chance for happiness, take it and don't look back at me. I built my own life as best as I could, and no one forced me to hang out with those people. I'll find Gwen regardless, so don't worry." Despite her attempt to cheer up her friend, Kaylee found it even harder to be happy after Vanessa left. Every morning, she wondered where and how her little girl was waking up. Was she eating? And whether she was crying. On her way to work, she wiped away bitter tears as she saw other children with their mothers in the park, wondering if anyone was there with Gwen. At night, Kaylee couldn't sleep and imagined what her daughter had learned to do, from taking her first steps to showing off her first little white teeth. All of it was happening somewhere far away. Kaylee cried herself to sleep every night, feeling helpless and alone. When Gwen turned 1 on calendar, Kaylee bought a large cake, lit a candle, and made a wish for her little one's happiness. Above all else, I want to find you. If you can't blow out this candle and make a wish, I'll do it for you, and may my dream come true. Despite making that promise, each passing day made it harder for Kaylee to believe she would ever find her daughter again. She poured her loneliness and despair into wine, starting with small doses and gradually increasing. A year later, she met Luis, a seemingly reliable and decent guy. By then, Kaylee had quit her job at the workshop and started working as a waitress in a cafe, unable to bear the sympathetic glances of her colleagues. Luis was the first to talk to her and invited her out for a walk. They quickly hit it off and started living together. Kaylee shared her story about her missing daughter, and Luis revealed he had been to prison. "What for?" Kaylee asked, scared. She didn't expect the guy who looked so decent to have a criminal record. "Well, to be honest, for nothing. I got into a fight and went too far, beating up someone who didn't deserve it. So they locked me up for 3 years, but I was released after 18 months for good behavior." At first, Kaylee didn't know what to make of Luis's confession, but she soon became suspicious and uneasy. She decided to confront him honestly, and Luis didn't deny it, confessing to his past without hesitation. "After I was released from prison, I realized my life had taken a drastic turn. Even my friends had abandoned me, and no employer was willing to take me in. But I was accustomed to living a lavish lifestyle, making good money, and I wasn't ready to give that up, so I adapted as best as I could. Drugs gave me a sense of freedom. If you think I'm a criminal, you're sorely mistaken. I never force anyone to consume illegal substances. Everyone has a choice in life, and I just provide an alternative option. You might not have allowed yourself to drink before, but now you find solace in wine to numb your pain and anger. But you're not angry with the people who produce your drink, are you? No, you go and buy another bottle yourself, and the stores just sell them to make money. That's how it is for me, Kaylee." Kaylee didn't object, so she remained silent. The emptiness of the bottle she had drained numbed her anxiety momentarily, and in the following days, she didn't think about her boyfriend's criminal activities. This continued until the day the police showed up at their apartment and barged in. Both Kaylee and Luis were arrested for drug possession, and Luis was additionally accused of illegally distributing drugs. It turned out that one of his regular customers had reported him after his girlfriend passed away from a dose purchased from Luis. Since the drugs were found in the apartment Kaylee rented, she was also implicated as an accomplice. "I had nothing to do with this," cried the distressed woman. "I've never even tried drugs." "That's not surprising," said the investigator. "Those who peddle these drugs rarely use them. They view drug addicts as a source of income and consider them disposable. Exploiting the vulnerabilities of sick people is cruel and vile, and you knew what your man was up to, but didn't stop him." Kaylee realized the investigator was right. She had been living in her own world, ignoring Luis's dirty work. A few days later, she was released, with only her moral guilt weighing her down. But the whole ordeal wasn't for naught for Kaylee. She drank even more, remembering the girl who had died because Luis wanted to make an easy buck. No one was there to stop her from repeatedly reaching for the bottle. No one to sympathize or lend a hand. And so, the girl drowned her sorrows in wine until one winter evening, when she made a terrible decision. She opened the window and took a step off the windowsill. If it hadn't been snowing the day before, Kaylee would have surely died from hitting the frozen asphalt outside her building. But luckily, a heavy snowstorm had hit that day, and snowdrifts had piled beneath her window. Kaylee survived, but her arm and leg were severely injured. As she was losing consciousness, she overheard the paramedics talking about her. "She's a young alcoholic. Can you smell the alcohol on her breath? Did she have to get so drunk to jump out the window?" Kaylee wanted to argue with them, but her strength gave out and she fell into unconsciousness. She woke up in a white room, trying to move, but realizing that her right arm and leg were encased in plaster, and a supporting collar was around her neck. Her whole body felt sluggish and unresponsive. "Be careful, don't move," the nurse who had just walked into the room cautioned her. "The doctor will be in soon to talk to you." Half an hour later, a tall man in a white coat entered Kaylee's room and introduced himself as Anthony Woods. Sitting on the edge of her bed, he began to question her. "You have to understand that in the situation that has arisen, we need to transfer you to the psychiatric ward. You attempted suicide, and that's no joke. You will need to undergo a series of discussions with a psychiatrist." "But I am mentally healthy," Kaylee argued with the doctor. "It's just that a lot of bad things have happened in my life recently." "Do you think that other people who try to harm themselves do it because they're having a good life? Do you think it's normal to drink to the brink of death and try to end your life by jumping out a window? Don't argue with me. You need help anyway. If not from a psychiatrist, then from a psychologist. Can you transfer me to another department? I really need help, but I'm afraid of being among the insane," Kaylee wept. "I feel like if I end up there, I will never return to a normal life. I dream of finding my daughter." And Kaylee told the doctor about her life and about her fiance's betrayal, her kidnapped little girl, her mother's death, her friend's departure, and the dirty deed she got involved in because of her apathy. "You see, I'm already at rock bottom," she begged the doctor, grabbing his hand. "Well, I reckon you wouldn't want to send your wife or daughter to a psychiatric hospital if she was feeling unwell. You know, maybe you're onto something there. 2 years back, I lost my wife, and I've had thoughts of joining her on a few occasions since then. But I still got my son Jameson. He's just 7 years old and he needs me. That's what keeps me going. I can't even imagine your pain. I reckon I wouldn't be able to go on if something happened to my boy." Anthony made sure that the young woman in the 3rd ward wasn't sent to the psychiatric wing, and instead, he started to visit her more often in her room. Whenever he had some free time, he brought her fruits and candies. He talked about happy memories from his life, and regaled her with stories about his son's shenanigans. And when they were feeling down, they shared stories about their lost loved ones. Unbeknownst to both Anthony and Kaylee, they had grown quite close to each other. When the doctor accompanied Kaylee to the taxi on the day of her release from the hospital, he said, "You can't be alone, Kaylee. It isn't healthy for you. How about having dinner at my place tonight? I'd love to take you out to a restaurant, but you know I have a son and I can't leave him alone in the evening. I don't think there's anything wrong with introducing you as a friend. We'll have a nice dinner, watch a movie, and if you like it there, maybe you'll agree to move in with me." Anthony's offer took Kaylee by surprise. "I ain't forcing you or nothing," Anthony reassured her. "I just figured that we're both alike in some ways. Been through some tough losses, so I reckon we could be good for each other and take care of each other's feelings." Kaylee agreed to visit him, though she declined his offer to move in. "I agree," she said, surprised at herself. "Not about moving in right away, but I'll definitely come to visit you." Anthony let out a chuckle as he breathed a sigh of relief. "Phew, that's a weight off my shoulders. I was afraid you turned me down, Kaylee. I didn't want to come across as pushy, you know, since I haven't invited a girl over in years. I met Chloe, my wife, back when we were in our first year of med school, and we've been together ever since, until the day she passed. I haven't had anyone over since then, so you're the first," he explained, grinning cheerfully. Kaylee returned his smile and repeated, "I'll come." Later that evening, she arrived at Anthony's bachelor pad for the first time. In the hallway, she was met by a boy who appeared much older than his age, with a pair of sorrowful gray eyes. "Hi," he greeted her politely. "Are you going to be my new stepmom?" "Hello, Jameson," Kaylee responded with a smile. "Let's get to know each other first. My name is Kaylee. Why did you assume I was going to be your dad's wife?" "My dad is a serious guy," Jameson began thoughtfully. "He never brings women over. So, if he's making an exception for you, I think he takes you seriously." Kaylee was impressed by the boy's intelligence. "You're a smart kid," she said in amazement. "If you talk to me like an adult, I'll respond to you as an adult. I don't know your dad very well yet, We've just met and we're not even dating. I'm here more as a friend, so don't worry about me. If you don't like me, I won't bother you anymore, I promise. Now tell me, are you uncomfortable with me being here?" "Why would I be?" Jameson replied. "I think it's good that my dad has a friend, even if she's a woman. Dad's been working a lot and hasn't been taking any time off lately. Maybe he'll have more fun with me," said Kaylee. "Jameson, call me Kaylee, because I feel old when you address me formally," she added with a laugh. "But aren't you old?" Jameson asked in surprise. "How old are you, 25? Kaylee laughed and nodded. "I realize now that I must seem old to you. When I was your age, I used to think people over 20 were already old. But I'd still appreciate it if you called me Kaylee." Anthony poked his head out of the kitchen. "Have you two met? I purposely stayed out of the way so you could chat in peace." "Kaylee, you know my son is a very smart guy. As soon as he heard a girl was coming over today, he suggested we buy flowers for you. So go to the living room and receive a bouquet from the most chivalrous man in our house, Jameson Barrett. Jameson, escort Kaylee. I'll finish cooking the fish and join you in a moment." Kaylee fidgeted. "Can I help you?" she asked. "No, and no way. You're our guest, and on your first visit, we'll treat you like royalty. Right, Jameson? Let's show Kaylee the pictures from our trip to the beach and your Lego creations." By the end of the night, Kaylee felt right at home in Anthony and his son's apartment, and the little guy was starting to warm up to her too. As they said their goodbyes, he extended his hand to her and asked, "Kaylee, will you come back to visit us soon?" "Do you want me to?" the woman grinned. "I think so," the boy replied, smiling too. "I don't mind having you over. It's more fun with you around. And my dad was in a way better mood tonight than he has been in ages." "Well then, I'm definitely coming back," promised Kaylee. "Son, I'm gonna walk our guest out and come right back. Don't worry, I won't be gone long," Anthony assured his son before accompanying the woman to the entrance. "Kaylee, I hope I didn't do anything wrong." He began awkwardly shifting his weight from one foot to the other, but he was caught off guard when Kaylee stood on tiptoes and planted a kiss on his lips. "I had a great time with you, Anthony. It's been a while since I've felt this good. I feel like I've known you and your son forever. Let's use you with each other like close friends, okay?" Anthony hugged her and drew her close, breathing in the soft scent of her hair. He smiled a contented smile. "Absolutely, Kaylee." He leaned in and kissed her tentatively, almost as if he couldn't believe his good fortune. Kaylee responded, and they stood beneath the streetlight kissing like teenagers as the light snowflakes danced around them and the cab never arrived. In a few weeks' time, Kaylee moved in with Anthony and his son. Over time, she changed dramatically, becoming more peaceful, joyful, and giving up alcohol completely. For the first time in a while, she had someone by her side who truly supported her without tearing her down or making her feel small. With them, Kaylee blossomed like a spring flower in the gentle April sunshine. She became good friends with Jameson, who had just started school, and whose father didn't have much time to help him with his studies. Kaylee took on that role and discovered that they both loved working on puzzles and playing with Lego. She could spend hours sitting with Jameson, helping him with his favorite pastimes, just like a true friend. On weekends, they would head over to the park to stroll around an old pond. Kaylee brought a sense of comfort, warmth, and happiness to the two men in her life. She was their savior, and with them, she had found her home. One day, Anthony proposed to her, saying, "Let's tie the knot. I want you to be my wife. Nowadays, people just live together without making it official, but I want us to do things differently." Kaylee said yes, and in the sweet aroma of spring, they exchanged vows. After the wedding, Jameson asked Kaylee, "Do I have to call you Mom now?" Kaylee looked at him with a smile and replied, "No, you don't have to. You had a mother, and she will always hold a special place in your heart. But if you want to call me that someday, I'll be glad." A few months later, Kaylee found out she was pregnant. Jameson exclaimed, "So, does that mean I'm going to be a big brother?" Kaylee replied, "Yes, but I can't promise whether it's going to be a boy or a girl. We'll love them for who they are." "I want a sister," Jameson said, "just in case the baby turns out to be a troublemaker. With the girl, I know I can handle it." "We'll see," Kaylee laughed. "But beware, she may end up handling you instead," teased Anthony. "Nowadays, girls are so lively that it's tough to keep up with them." That's precisely how it went down with Anthony and Kaylee's daughter, Kate. She was raised as an outgoing and friendly girl. With the arrival of her younger sister, Jameson grew even more responsible and mature. He could play with the baby for hours on end. Despite their age gap, they always found fun things to do together. The older neighbors would occasionally tease Jameson, saying, "You're a catch for a guy with a little sister to look after," or, "Is it your stepmother who's making you do it?" This reminded them of the time when Alexandria came to Riverdale and dashed the hopes of local girls who had their sights set on Braxton. With Kaylee's arrival, Anthony had suddenly become a sought-after bachelor among his neighbors. Many cougar mothers were left disappointed as they had daughters who were ready for marriage. Despite not being a businessman, Anthony was a promising surgeon who didn't drink, which was already something to be pleased about. Fate, however, had other plans for him and his son. "No one is forcing me to play with my little sister." Jameson would get offended. "I find it fascinating to spend time with her." "What could a grown-up possibly find interesting with the baby?" "I'm introducing her to the world," Jameson replied earnestly. "And do you know how much I learned from her? She asks me so many questions that I can't keep up. And you call her a baby." The aunties outside the building laughed at Jameson. At first, it was just a joke, but when groups of boys and girls started gathering around him, everyone believed that he would make a great teacher. Anthony had dreamed of his son becoming a doctor, but Jameson was clearly inclined towards other sciences. They were far from what he could use in medicine, so his parents didn't object when he went to study geography at a pedagogical university after finishing school. "Let the boy do what he loves," Kaylee told her slightly sad husband. "And besides, we still have a daughter. Maybe she'll follow in your footsteps. She's not interested in sewing and tailoring yet, so I shouldn't be too disappointed." "Don't you have enough helpers in your studio?" Anthony asked playfully. By that time, Kaylee had already opened her small but profitable business making outerwear with Anthony's support. It was just like she had always dreamed of. Her designer coats were so unique and different from the mass-produced Chinese products flooding the market that orders were booked 6 months in advance. Each item in her studio was unique and one of a kind. Once, while on vacation, Jameson came to visit them. He was a college student in his 3rd year, studying in New York. After hearing his mother's concern about 10-year-old Kate's lack of interest in the family business, he shared his experience during a practice session at a children's home around New York. He met a girl who had recently graduated from high school. "Mom, you wouldn't believe how special she is. She's a real fashion designer, even though she never studied it anywhere. But they teach them everything little by little there, preparing them for life, both sewing and cooking." As Jameson spoke of the girl, he blushed and became nervous. "Jamie, my son, let me see you. Have you fallen in love?" Kaylee asked quietly. "Mom, maybe I have, but she's not just any 17-year-old girl. When I look at her, it's like I see you. Your eyes, your voice, your hair, dimples on your cheeks. She's an orphan, you know? I think if we invited her to work with you, she would." "Hold on, what's the girl's name?" Kaylee asked, now worried. "Annabelle. You know, such a rare name now." Annabelle, Kaylee thought, disappointedly. All these years she had been searching for Gwendolyn Lambert, but unsuccessfully. Maybe Mrs. Cook took Kaylee's daughter somewhere abroad, and if she didn't go anywhere all these years, and if she changed her name and her granddaughter's name, such thoughts often came to Kaylee's mind. But then it's impossible to find the child. That was the verdict of the police. "What about the girl's parents?" Kaylee asked Jameson, her voice trembling. "She doesn't remember them. They died right after birth. Annabelle lived with her grandmother, but she died 5 years ago, and the girl was placed in a foster family. Annabelle kept spinning in Kaylee's head. What's the girl's last name? She asked her son. I didn't say. Is that important? Jameson was surprised. She has a wonderful last name, and above all, a very rare one. He continued, Norris. Norris Rowan was also Norris, Kaylee thought. It was entirely possible that Mrs. Cook changed their names, leaving the last name, too common of a surname to find them by. Yes, she had the money and time to prepare everything. Could her search finally come to an end? No, it's too good to be true, she scolded herself. Mom, what's wrong with you? Why are you so thrilled? I swear on my honor that I ain't starting any romances, and besides, I ain't planning to tie the knot until I finish college. Oh, by the way, you should all check out Annabelle's work. She got herself an Instagram page. At least that's what I heard, declared Jameson. Why didn't you say anything before? Kaylee nearly shouted. Gosh, Mom, I ain't exactly quiet. I've been telling you all about her. She's amazing, exactly what we need for you and me, replied Jameson. Kaylee glanced at the photo of the young girl with big eyes and dimples on her soft cheeks, just like Kaylee's own. Tears streamed down her face. Mom, what are you looking at? It's called My Sketches, and here's my work. Of course, she couldn't do much in a children's home, but check out what she came up with. Jameson exclaimed excitedly. Can you guess what she's making that coat from? Handmade, no less. It's old, worn-out blankets. Can you imagine? It's a fashion revolution. Stylish and new. Jameson, are you sure you're studying geography? Kate, his sister, interjected. Throughout the conversation, she had been sitting with pouty lips. I knew he'd find some girl over there and bring her back here, Kate thought to herself, indignant. Examining Annabelle's work over Jameson's shoulder, she managed to say, Well, it's not bad, I reckon. You talking about Annabelle or the coat? Jameson asked. Well, the coat is pretty cool. I totally rock that. As for Annabelle, I don't know what you're talking about. Saying she looks like our mom. Our mom is a real beauty, and this chick is some scrawny thing with just eyes, replied Kate. Well, sweetie, when I was 17, I was skinny as a reed, just like your great-grandma Alexandria. You've seen her photo, all eyes, and I'm only half Baltic. You know my mom is from Latvia, Jameson said to Kate. Kate conceded. Yeah, her eyes do look similar, just like our great-grandma's. But that's only in photos. In person, even more so. She even has the same voice as you, Mom, Jameson exclaimed. Mom, how can this be? Kaylee declared, Well, maybe I should go visit her right now. We can invite her to come stay with us for the holidays and get to know her better. I think I can make that happen, Jameson replied. He couldn't believe how easily his mother agreed. He didn't dare dream that he would soon see the girl of his dreams again, that she would celebrate Christmas with them, that he could show her around the city, and maybe she would even agree to go to the movies or ice skating with him. But the young man couldn't even begin to imagine what lay ahead of them. As it turned out, Annabelle was indeed Kaylee's daughter. Although her grandma changed a lot, she gave the girl a different name and moved her birthday back 2 months, so that the day of her son and Harlow's death would have already passed by the time Annabelle was born. Mrs. Cook showed Annabelle their photos and assured her that Harlow was her mother. After comparing all the facts of Annabelle's biography and conducting a DNA test, Kaylee proved her relationship with Annabelle and took her into her family. It wasn't easy for the girl to accept all of this, but what a joy it must have been to realize that she, who was a nobody just yesterday, had now found a family, a mother, a younger sister, a stepfather, and even a cool older brother, though not by blood. With Annabelle's arrival, their family business flourished, and the sisters quickly turned their once small mother's workshop into the fashionable Alexandria house. Their brand name made a name for itself not only in the country, but also on fashion shows abroad. Annabelle and her mother focused on outerwear, while the romantic young Kate followed in their footsteps and surprisingly showed her ability. She crafted dresses for her fellow Americans, for prom, for first dates, and without a doubt, for weddings. It was her blueprint that was employed to stitch the bridal gown for her brother's nuptials. Need we even mention who she evolved into? On the day of Annabelle and Jameson's wedding, nobody was more elated than Kaylee, apart from the newlyweds themselves. At last, genuine happiness was restored to her existence.